Hello, I'm the Angry Spork, and welcome to the 3rd anniversary of Taking Issue. And as I open my 4th season, surely by now I have enough subscribers and viewed hours to monetize. Oh jeez, what am I getting?
Man, if you thought I yammered on about Cassandra Cain before my 3rd season, I really stepped it up. Not only did I dedicate an entire month to celebrating the character, from her initial origin to her time as Black Bat, short-lived as it was, I even dedicated my 100th episode to admittedly reiterating the stuff I've said before about how lousy her reinvention is. But I closed the year by looking at the late Stan Lee's contribution to DC and having to deal with a certain pest along the way. So, after a kind of Let's Play and some outtakes, what's in store for this anniversary?
Now, maybe, like me, you've gotten something like this in the mail from one or more charities, these plastic photo albums. And while they do a decent enough job, I didn't really have a whole lot of photos to store in them, and I didn't want to just throw them away. However, I did have movie stubs. And this is the second one I've been filling up so far, and covering with my mediocre drawing skills. Bloodsplosion Extreme! Anyway, let's get to talking about the movies I didn't vlog in 2019. First day of 2019, I saw Aquaman, and I was a little unsure about it at first. I'm sure many people were, given DC's previous movies, but it was a lot of fun. I'm not 100% sure how much they deviated from the more popular or well-known elements from Aquaman. It didn't bore me. I do think that there were a few logical leaps, a few things that they could have done better to explain. And while I wasn't a big fan of Momoa's Aqua Bro, he wasn't bad. It was fun. He made it work for the story. I wouldn't be opposed to watching it again. It had a lot of good action. It had a sense of humor, which, some people seem to be afraid of. But yeah, it was definitely worth the price of admission. And a week later, I saw Bumblebee. We finally get a Transformers movie that is free from Michael Bay's direction. these are how the designs should have been in the first place. Here they had such a nice balance of classic looks and kind of polishing them up for modern audiences. While it was by no means a perfect film, it didn't insult your intelligence. It didn't rely on, these scientific rumors that people believe that aren't actually true, or just coming up with one new mystery. Oh, Cybertron and Earth, they're so connected. Woo! So it's a definite welcome departure. Hopefully we get more movies like that out of Transformers, and, well, maybe someone can work the same magic for the Ninja Turtles. Alita Battle Angel. Now, I'm not familiar with the anime that this is based on, or it could be a manga. I don't know. Actually, it probably is a manga. I wouldn't be surprised. I enjoyed it. I mean, when I saw the commercials for it, it's like they CGI'd the actress's eyes so huge, and it was really, really jarring. But, it didn't really bother me as I was watching it. The movie had definite heart. It didn't seem to have a whole lot of this corporate, oh, you gotta put this in because that's what the kids will want, or we gotta make this seem like it could happen in the real world. Like, I do feel that the last 10, 15 minutes, as far as they concerned her love interest, they felt very rushed. It seemed like that could have been expanded upon more in like a sequel, but maybe the story it's based on didn't really mesh or flow that way. But it just felt very odd how they ended it with him. I wouldn't be opposed to a sequel. It's probably the best anime to Western cinema translation that we've ever gotten. Definitely better than Ghost in the Shell, which was just one missed opportunity after another there. It was a very enjoyable action movie, and I thought the characters were mostly very likable, and especially the lead actress. Now, bear in mind, some of these movies I've only seen once and have not revisited. Not necessarily because they were bad, but, time and other factors. So my memory might get a little hazy, but yeah. How to Train Your Dragon 3. This one was alright. As the closeout to the trilogy, I felt it could have been stronger. As a trilogy overall, I think I liked it better as a third installment than I did Kung Fu Panda 3. Looking over all the Dragon movies, they do seem fairly consistent as far as quality. There are moments in each movie that you could say, oh, I like that better than the previous movie or in the later movie, but, then the highs and lows are never too big amongst them. The sister of the twins we've seen, I think it's Roughnut. I forget which one she is, honestly. The twins and Snotlout, the bully of the group, they've always felt extraneous to me. Like, they don't really serve a purpose other than some mild comedic instances, but they're never that funny, to be honest. The sister of the twins is captured, but she just is let go. And the villain letting her go to follow her back to the new Burke. Okay, I understand that, but it just seemed to be done very obviously. Like, how does anyone not see? I know she's not supposed to be that bright, but being that stupid? The villain could have used more, a bit more insight into his motivation. Just a bit more with him so he can feel invested when he's in a scene. The other thing that really just made me scratch my head was Snotlout, throughout the entire movie, is trying to hit on Hiccup's mom, and she's clearly not interested. Snotlout has no character arc, no character growth, he doesn't change, so it perplexed me when Hiccup's mom, can't think of her name for some reason, she says that, oh, this guy, Errett, he's got the brawn, but you've got the brain, Snotlout. Like, no, he doesn't! He's a moron! Why would you say this, lady? You're lying to him. Don't lie to him. It will only embolden him with the lying. Woof. But overall, the movie was a very well-made film, even with a few issues here and there. Visually, it was well animated. No question about that. Lego Movie 2. I had about as much fun with this as I did the first one. I wouldn't say it's better. I would say it's about as good. There were some things that kind of subverted my expectations, like, oh, Batman now does want to get married to this strange entity, and she really wasn't a horrible, malicious villain. That's okay. And I did kind of like the whole sibling rivalry going on. That the son from the first movie is getting older. He's getting a bit more distant from his sister. The whole thing with Chris Pratt's other character, well, it did get kind of confusing with the whole time travel thing, but they try to excuse it with oh, don't think about it, because it's just a fun, imaginative story. But at the same time, it's like, they've shown these Lego characters to kind of move on their own independently of the child's imagination. They did it with Emmett in the first one. They do it again with him here, and they do it with Lucy. I know it's a comedy, and it's, and all this, but it's just like, even comedies, even cartoons, the silliest cartoons have to adhere to some manner of logic and some cohesion to their storytelling, so you can have a whole bunch of laughs, but leading up to that, it's kind of like, you kind of shot yourselves in the foot here, people. Just a little. It's still as wonderfully animated as the first one. It did try for another Everything is Awesome song, like a new theme that would get into people's ears and they'd be humming it and singing it all the time. They called it This Song Will Get Stuck in Your Head, something to that effect. But I wasn't really feeling it myself. Even as I was listening to it, as they were explaining that this was going to get caught in your head, it's like, no, it didn't. And maybe it's because they told me it was going to get caught in my head that it didn't get caught in my head. It's a trap in my brain. Just snatch it, grab it, take it out. I don't know. Captain Marvel. This was not a horrible movie. I've seen a lot of people complain about it for various reasons and get really worked up about it. Honestly, I didn't think it was that bad, but I didn't think it was all that good either. It kind of bordered on one of the weakest MCU films. To some degree, it's a small thing how Nick Fury lost his eye. A space cat scratched it out. Except that had such gravitas with it in Winter Soldier. It's like, oh, now it's just a joke. It's a throwaway joke. It's like, that's not funny. I mean, if they had never brought it up in any of the previous movies, then okay, it would still be kind of silly, but it just wouldn't have been as bad when you take everything into account. The Skrulls actually being more the oppressed people as opposed to the more traditional, villainous roles they typically fill, that came as a surprise. But, it's something we've seen in films before, so it's not unprecedented. But then you have, the post-credits scene where Fury has been vacationing on a Skrull ship for a while, and you gotta wonder, are all the Skrulls just nice guys in this universe now? Because it kind of feels like that detracts from some of their storytelling potential. Now, you could say that, well, just like any other people, here on Earth, you got some good people and you got some bad people, and, we got the good Skrulls now, and later we'll get the bad Skrulls, and that could be some interesting storytelling right there. One criticism I do think is valid is that Carol Danvers doesn't really have much in the way of an arc. Yes, she does learn that she's been used, and that people have been lying to her. She has this past she never knew about, but it doesn't change her. She already had this awesome power within her, so she doesn't really face much in the way of a challenge after that. Where that guy, what's his name? He's ready to fight her one-on-one without powers, because that's the only way she's gonna zap. Okay, yeah, that was funny. That was funny, when, Indiana Jones shot that dude with a sword instead of getting into a big fight. It was funny. But Carol doesn't really seem to change. Yes, she decides to help the Skrulls, but she was already the type of person that would help someone in need. And I don't think it was really helped by the fact that Carol doesn't really emote that much. I don't know if that was a directorial insistence, or if it was in the script, or maybe they were trying to make her seem stoic, but it didn't really come off as stoic as someone forgot to tell Brie Larson to emote. I can't really say I can think of anything I've seen Brie Larson in besides this, so I can't really speak to her as an actress.
As for the thing with her call sign, Avenger, being the inspiration for the Avenger Initiative, I gotta say I'm kind of mixed on that. I mean, I would have thought they'd go with Warbird, which is one of the names she had back when she had that black suit, and that would have been the most obvious choice, a clear nod to her history in the comics. I can see why they did it to a certain point. Yes, she did present the first sign for Nick Fury that there are threats beyond Earth that could threaten them, so of course, if he wants to put together a team of special, superpowered people, I can kind of see it, but at the same time, it feels very ham-fisted and kind of forced. I'm not angry about it, but at the same time, I'm not cheering it.
Overall, I would say Captain Marvel is not a great film, but by no means a terrible film. I think that there was just a lot of polish they could have done, some changes they should have made, and it would have been probably one of their stronger movies. Joker. I did not do a vlog on Joker. I have mentioned before I suffer from depression. I can identify with certain elements of this film, even when it got a little disturbing and creepy. I'm someone that doesn't think Joker needs an origin. I think he works best without it. I think that it's an element he can do just fine without, and that kind of works in his favor, because he could be anyone. He could have been any kind of guy and still ended up like this because of, a right hook from Batman and a bath and some chemicals. And this deviates from that in a lot of ways, mostly because, well, he's like at least in his mid-30s when Bruce Wayne's parents are murdered. It's kind of evocative of Heath Ledger's Joker in The Dark Knight, because he puts on makeup. This is something he eventually chooses. The way he's broken down by all these elements around him and these fantasies, I've had my moments where I'm just like laying back and I'm just kind of thinking of this possible outcome or that possible outcome. Hey, I've imagined myself being interviewed by Conan O'Brien on a time or two, or Stephen Colbert. Ain't gonna happen, but, that's daydreaming for you. And I'm aware it has inspiration from other more classic films, but, I can't say I've ever seen them, and even besides that, I do think this is a very well-made film, and as one separate from the main DCEU, I think it works, and I think it does say a lot about how we treat people who are in need of medical care and are just a little different, and we would rather kind of shuffle them off because we don't want to deal with them. And in Arthur Fleck's case, he does take it to he does choose to take it to extremes. And I'm not saying like he was justified in killing anyone. It is a thought-provoking film. I do think it's a good film. I don't know that I would buy it myself, simply because it's just one of those movies where I'm okay with seeing it occasionally or just once or something. I do think that if you want something genuinely thought-provoking in terms of, comic book movies, I would say see Joker if you haven't. But on the other hand, if you take out all the Gotham stuff, all the Wayne stuff, all the Joker stuff, and you just make a few tweaks here and there, this would work just fine as a film on its own. It's just that it probably would not have broken $1 billion if it wasn't loosely based on the Clown Prince of Crime. One thing I'm a little on the fence about, kind of leaning towards don't really like, is how at the end of the movie, when there's this riot going on, one of these self-appointed disciples of the Joker in a clown mask shoots the Waynes. And I'm also someone that thinks, like, the Wayne murder shouldn't be like, oh, this mobster is planning, put a hit on this guy, or, oh, this guy was brainwashed to kill the Waynes as part of this big conspiracy here. or whatever. I think like just having it a, a, a regular crime that you would think would never happen to these affluent individuals speaks a lot more to Batman's mission and is a lot deeper for the character, a lot more important for the character. And I think that having them be victims of this giant riot inspired by Arthur I wouldn't say it detracts from that necessarily. Potentially it does, but it doesn't exactly fit into it in the same way. I mean, like I said, I'm on the fence. I'm leaning towards not liking it as much, but still, the movie's good. I would recommend giving it a shot. The Addams Family. I don't really have much of a connection with the franchise, personally. I did watch the animated series, Saturday morning cartoon, when I was a kid, not because, oh, it's just so funny. It's like, okay, this is entertaining enough. And it's like, it was kind of part of my routine as a kid. I saw bits and pieces of the theatrical movies. I haven't really seen the original show, but I will say that John Astin, the voice of Gomez in the Saturday morning cartoon, and the original Gomez in the old live-action TV show, I just love his voice. It's just got this natural, upbeat quality to it. It's just a pleasure to listen to. I don't hate the movie. I thought it was okay. I thought it was funny enough for the most part. The character designs, I understand, are kind of more in line with the original designs for the characters. We kind of see like the origin of how Gomez and Morticia found this mansion and met up with Lurch, who I guess was an escaped mental patient that just said, okay, I'll be your butler. They're run out of this village because of these people who don't like, the Addamses or, Morticia's side of the family. So there's this whole, persecution subplot going on. Themes of being ostracized and the victim of prejudice. And several years later, after they've had 2 children, it comes back when Wednesday decides she wants to venture outside the house, go to a public school. She met up with a girl that was, snooping around their house. They talk a bit, and she decides, okay, I want to go to public school. And she meets that girl again, and there are a pair of twins next to that girl, and some rich girl that, the bully, she starts picking on them, and Wednesday just immediately goes into attack mode. They're not trapped in here with you. You're trapped in here with me. It's like, wow, you just immediately figured you needed to defend these people for some reason. It's like, that just seemed very sudden to me. And at the end, it's like, oh, they're just a regular family. Sure, they're weird and they like the macabre and they play with explosions and swords and so forth. But I felt like the lesson was just nothing special. It's nothing we haven't seen in these kind of movies before. It's not really resolved much differently. And the lead villainess, she doesn't really face any punishment. She just suddenly ends up in a relationship with Uncle Fester, which, like, where did that come from? Okay, there's a little bit of humor of this creepy guy Fester, being interested in a traditionally attractive woman. Not that I thought that the woman was all that attractive, but it's like, why? Why?
Now, listening to one or more critiques or reviews about this movie, a point came up that the humor in this franchise is that the strange, the macabre, the quote-unquote scary is just normal for the Addams family, and everyone else in the outside world is acting weird. They're peculiar, but they still respect them. They'll invite you into their house. They'll be just fine with you, for the most part. And this movie kind of missed the mark as far as they're concerned, and I can see where they're coming from. Looking at it from that perspective, it does kind of make them a little less unique, because as I said, the whole, hey, they're just like us thing has been done a lot before in especially child-aimed animated features, so yeah, they kind of took something away there. I will say that in the animated series I watched as a kid, I never really liked Pugsley. I thought he was just dead weight as far as I was concerned, but in this movie, they did kind of give him something to do, even though, yeah, it's kind of like a rite of passage type of thing that we have seen before, but I thought it was one of the better elements in the movie. I liked the idea of Wednesday's braids being little hangman nooses, and it was weird seeing Cousin It that small.
The voice cast, I thought, did a fine enough job. I was never like laughing out loud. I thought it was pretty funny. I'd probably watch it again, but it didn't really like turn me over to the whole franchise. And I think it was basically just okay, but it could have been better if you ask me. Frozen 2. I thought the first one was fine. I understand everyone's frustration with, that one song, and they even poke fun at it a little here. It gives them a new adventure. It delves into their, what happened to their parents. Tells this untold story of their kingdom and how maybe Grandpapa was not the nicest guy. I feel like we could have spent more time with these northern dwelling individuals and the soldiers of Arendelle who were left behind. I think we could have fleshed them out a bit more. We could have gotten to know them more. But a lot of it was, basically the characters we're familiar with on this, magical quest. I think the emotions were like when the sisters find out how their parents died, basically. That's very well done. I think, like, emotional moments like that are very well done. The songs, I couldn't say that any of them were particularly catchy in the same way that Let It Go was, but I thought they were fine. I did not expect the 90s power ballad, though, from Christoph. I'm like, okay, I liked the touch where he's just kind of like, almost like he's got a headset on and he's singing into a pine cone that's standing in for a microphone. That was funny. Just like the sheer dissonance of the time period they seem to be in, the area of the world they're in, and just the genre of music they decided to go with is just so off. I can appreciate the humor. I was not particularly invested in the movie, to be honest, but I was never bored with it. It wasn't really, like, aimed at me, of course, but as a fan of animation, I liked it well enough, and I kind of liked that they decided, okay, so Elsa's going to be helping these northern folk out, and Anna's going to be Queen of Arendelle now, yay, so forth. But they're going to keep in touch. So, that's nice. Not a lot of strong feelings about the movie, to be honest.